Hello Year 8, welcome to your video on multiplying and dividing with decimals that you're going to need for tomorrow's lesson. So multiplying with decimals, here we have an example 1.2 times 0.4 is not as simple as simply doing 1.2 times 0.4. You could try this and say 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 1 is 4, and then a new line, put a 0 down. 0 times 2 is 2, 0 times 1 is 0 times 2 is 0, 0 times 1 is 0, and add them up, and lining up the decimal points gives you 4.8. But if you type 1.2 times 0.4 into a calculator, you get an answer of 0.48, which is actually the correct answer. So something has gone wrong. So let's get rid of all of this and show you how to do it properly. So when you're trying to multiply decimals together, the first little trick is to ignore the decimal point. So instead of 1.2 times 0.4, I'm just going to say, what is 12 times 4? And the answer is 48. To get the final answer for the question, it's not 48, it's far too big. But if we go back to the question and ask how many decimal places are there in the question, 1 here, 1 here, then our answer is going to have exactly the same number of decimal places as our question did. So we're going to need 1 decimal place here and 1 decimal place here, which means our decimal point is going to be there. So our final answer is actually 0.48, which is what our calculator tells us. So here's a second little example, 0.06 times 1.5. So again, we're going to ignore the decimal place and just ask what is 6 times 15. And the answer to that is 90. But again, that's not going to be my final answer. I need to go back to my question and ask how many decimal places are there in my question. And there is 1, 2, 3. So my answer is going to need 1, 2, 3. Notice how I have to count from the back of the question from right to left to make sure that my final answer has the right number of decimal places in it. So I've got 1, 2, 3, decimal point here, and any blank spaces will need to be filled in with a 0. So the answer is 0.090, but actually this 0 here isn't actually worth anything at all. So we could rewrite this question as, this answer as 0.09. This 0 is important, and so is this one, because they are lining up the units, particularly that 9, into the correct columns. But this 0 at the end wasn't adding anything onto the number, so we don't need it. One final example on multiplying decimals. Here I have 8 times 2.3. So again, I need to ignore any decimal places, so I've got 8 times 23. I need to work out this sum, so let's work that out here. 23 times 8. 3 times 8 is 24, carry the 2. 2 times 8 is 16, plus the extra 2 is 18. So 8 times 2.3 is not 184, but my question has 1 decimal place, so my answer will have 1 decimal place. So the actual answer is 18.4. Easy. Okay, let's have a look at dividing two decimals. First thing we're going to do, we can't divide it in its current state. We need to rewrite it as a fraction, 8.4 over 0.2. And we know that this line means divide, so it's still the same thing. But we don't want to have to divide where there's a decimal number on the bottom of the fraction, in the denominator. It makes it difficult. But we can use our knowledge of equivalent fractions, and we can multiply the denominator, in this case by 10, and it will turn it into a whole number. It will turn it into 2. But we know whatever you do to the bottom of a fraction, you have to do to the top. So our question is going to become now 84 divided by 2, which is equivalent to our first question here, but is much easier to do. 84 divided by 2 is of course 42. And that is actually our final answer. 8.4 divided by 0.2 is 42. Nice and easy. So let's just look at one more example. Here we've got 10.5 divided by 0.05. So let's write it as a fraction. 10.5 over 0.05. And now to change the denominator into a whole number to make the division easier, timesing by 10 isn't going to be good enough because it'll only become 0.5. So I'm going to have to times by 100. But whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So I get a new question, which is worth the same as the old one, of 1050 divided by 5. But now this is much easier to do using short division. 5s into 1050. 5s into 1 don't go. Carry the 1. 5s into 10 go twice. 5s into 5 go once. 5s into 0 go 0 times. So 10.5 divided by 0.05 equals 210. And that is the final answer. Okay, Year 8, I hope that's been easy to follow. Feel free to watch the video again and make some notes, and I will see you in class tomorrow.